namely that antidepressants often do not do what they promise and are in fact causing harm to many.
Dr. Steve Hotze is suing over Obamacare's employer mandate.
It's time for a wellness revolution. Brought to you by Hotze Health and Wellness Center. Honest discussion on maintaining health and wellness naturally to enjoy a better quality of life.
He's the doctor fighting to let you keep your doctor.
Now, Dr. Stephen Hotze.
Good afternoon, everyone out there. Thank you for joining us today at Dr. Hotze's Wellness Revolution. I'm Stacey Banfield here with Dr. Stephen Hotze, who is the founder of the Hotze Health and Wellness Center. If you have any questions for Dr. Hotze today, then you can call us in. We are live in studio, 713-212-5950. That's 713-212-5950. Of course, we always love our Facebook viewers, so you can always go to Facebook and log in any kind of comment or question that you want about the show. Dr. Hotze would be more than happy to address your questions and comments that way. All you have to do is go to Facebook, type in Hotze Health, that's Hotze Health, and you can just comment on whatever you'd like about health, and Dr. Hotze would be more than happy to address that. And of course, we do have our podcasts. If you haven't checked them out yet, then please do so. All you have to do is go to hotzepodcast.com. That's Hotze podcast.com. And you can download any of our radio programs day or night. Very convenient, and people are already accessing those, and we do appreciate those people as well. So now, without further ado, we have our host for the hour, Dr. Stephen Hotze.
Thank you so much, Stacey, and thank each one of you for joining us on Wellness Revolution. Why do you call it a revolution, Doctor? Well, because we're going to make some changes in the way the medical paradigm works in America. I believe that you and every individual, by the way, this is backwards again.
Oh, we're good. We're actually good. We're fine.
Is it okay? Okay, it is correct. You're right.
I'm
talking
fine.
about my Facebook Live here. We're on Facebook Live, and I thought we were backwards, but we're not.
We're not.
Okay. What about a revolution? A revolution is a change in the current social order. When you can make, there are political revolutions. Think of the Bolshevik and the Communist Revolution. Think of the French Revolution, American Revolution. Think of the revolutions where there have been major changes in government, a revolt takes place. And that means things change. So in a wellness revolution, what we're doing is we're focusing on helping people prevent illness. And if they're ill now and they're symptomatic with their illnesses and they're on medications, pharmaceutical drugs, the revolution is going to be to get you on a natural program so you can stop taking the pharmaceutical drugs. Now, how popular do you think this makes me with the pharmaceutical companies?
Not very.
Do you think they ever have anybody that listens to this program?
I'm sure they do occasionally.
I'm probably not on. I don't get Happy Meals.
You don't get Christmas cards.
I don't get Christmas cards
no
and Happy Meal birthday cards or
no
anything.
Flowers, chocolates.
Nothing from the pharmaceutical. They just don't send me anything. As a matter of fact, it's been over 20 years since we banned any pharmaceutical representative from coming to our office. We have no pharmaceutical reps ever darken the door of the Hotze Health and Wellness Center. So we're not sold out to the drug companies. I'm not a believer in it at all. So what I do believe, though, is that you need a health coach. What does that mean? That means you need a doctor and a staff of professionals who will coach you on the path of health and wellness naturally, without pharmaceutical drugs. Why do you want to do this? So you enjoy a better quality of life as you mature in age. Now, remember, in America, while we have great acute care facilities at hospitals, if you have an acute health problem, whether it's, you've got problems with acute asthma, and if you've been in a car wreck, if you've had a snake bite, if you fall and break your arm, you have a fractured back, you have some problem where you have your bowels have severe problems that require surgery, gunshot. Well, you got great care here. If you have a stroke, or a heart attack. For emergency situations, we've got outstanding care in America. For chronic health situations, the chronic aches and pains and the symptoms that people have as they mature, just not so good, because most doctors tend to fall in the trap of labeling symptoms and calling the symptoms the diagnosis. For instance, you got joint, muscle aches and pains all the time and you're fatigued, they might tell you, well, you've got fibromyalgia, which just means in Latin you got joint muscle aches and pains. They have to have a code. They have to have a diagnosis so they can get paid by the insurance companies. It's called a CPT code. So any disorder that a doctor wants to tell you have is routinely a label. It doesn't tell you what the underlying cause of the problem is. You may have several symptoms all related to one underlying cause, but they're going to label it. And they have, I say doctors have contracted a disorder or disease called labelitis. They label everything. It's got a label to it. You've got high blood pressure. You have diabetes. You got cardiac arrhythmia. You got migraines. You've got cardiovascular insufficiency. You've got renal failure. What's causing the problem, Doc? Why do I have this? What can we do to reverse it? And drugs cannot and never will be able to make you healthy because drugs never existed before in your body. Your body doesn't need drugs to be healthy, or else God would have put them in your body to begin with. And then they would be natural. What your body needs is really simple. It needs good, healthy eating lifestyle. It needs replenishment of hormones. It needs vitamins and minerals to help detoxify. And the vitamins and minerals, as well as the hormones, enable your cells' power plants, the mitochondria, to produce energy. You want to be a high energy producer. You want to be a live wire. You don't want to be some kind of slug just sitting around doing nothing because you don't have any energy to do anything. You're just barely existing. And then finally, the fourth thing is exercise. So it's a program of an optimal eating, healthy lifestyle, vitamin and mineral supplementation, replenishment of your natural occurring hormones, and exercise. If you have allergies, we treat for allergies too, and we're in allergy season now. We're in the weed pollen season, ragweed and the other weeds, Chenopodium, pigweed, all the weeds pollinate. And those pollens are carried in the air hundreds of miles, 400 and 500 miles. When we get a big front coming through here, as we've had some of these fronts come through, it brings pollens all the way from Oklahoma and even as far as Kansas, come all the way down into the Houston area. And, of course, in the spring, you get your weed pollens, and then you got your grass pollens, late spring, early summer, year-round. You have mold. And, of course, we're in a very wet, humid climate. And the homes that have been flooded are going to be filled with mold, and mold produces toxins, which are toxic to your body, and they oftentimes, because they're lipophilic, they love fat, they end up in the brain, and then it's cause a host of problems in people as they're exposed to mold toxicity over time. And then you got animal danders, and you got dust mites in your bed. So if you have allergies, you can treat for that. So that's kind of the basis of the revolution. The basis of the revolution is to get yourself a health coach and get on path of health and wellness naturally so you enjoy a better quality of life. We'll talk about that more when we come back.
That's right. And if anything that Dr. Hotze's been talking about resonates with you, any of those symptoms, and of course, if perhaps you're suffering from allergies, we treat allergies as well. So all you have to do is pick up the phone, give us a call, 281-698-8698. It's 281-698-8698. You are listening to Dr. Hotze's Wellness Revolution. Please stay tuned.
Why walk amongst the living sick when you can join a wellness revolution? Here's Dr. Hotze.
If you are sick and tired of being sick and tired, you want to do 180 and take charge of your health, then give us a call today at 281-698-8698. It's 281-698-8698. I knew that was going to happen. I'll say that one more time. 281-698-8698. We'd be more than happy to give you a complimentary consultation and a complimentary copy of Dr. Hotze's best-selling book, Hormones, Health, and Happiness, or his latest book, Do a 180, Join the Wellness Revolution. Here's Dr. Hotze.
Why don't you join the wellness revolution?
That's a good question.
Why haven't you joined the wellness revolution? If you joined the wellness revolution, congratulations to you. You're on the track to having an enjoyable, fulfilling life full of vitality. You're going to be vibrant. You're going to be enthusiastic about being alive. We got a lot to do. And coming on the second half of this program, I'm going to introduce you to a good friend of mine who is visiting me from Colorado Springs, Mr. Matt Barber. Matt Barber is the founder of the Christian Civil Rights Watch. Yeah, Christians have civil rights too, right?
It's hard to imagine that, though, in these days.
It seems like everybody's coming down on the Christians. Everybody else has rights except for Christians. So anyway, he's going to talk about his work at Civil Rights Watch and why he has formed this when we come on after our next break. So in the meantime, as a matter of fact, he entered the room now. Have a seat there, Matt. We're going to talk right now in this segment about allergies. Allergies are an abnormal reaction to your body's immune system to normal occurring substances in the environment. Things you breathe in the air, the weed, tree, and grass pollens, the dust mites, mold spore, animal danders. These are airborne allergens. And these allergens float in the air, particularly the pollens, float in the air, and they float hundreds of miles. They're called anemophilous pollens because they're airborne. And big-time problems happen with people. When October comes, we start getting our fronts in from the north, and it carries with a host of pollen. So people will develop, they'll get the itchy eyes and nose and the drainage, and maybe kids start getting ear infections, and you start getting swelling of your sinuses and sinus headaches. The next thing you know, you got a sinus infection. It may end up getting down into the lungs where you got bronchitis, and some people develop asthma. Asthma is caused by a narrowing of it's caused by bronchospasm. It's a narrowing of the bronchial tubes in the lungs, so they wheeze like, they can hardly breathe. It makes it very difficult to breathe. So there's medications that can be given acutely for that. For any of these, if you get a sinus infection, of course, you can take an antibiotic. But if you get recurrent and chronic sinus infections or recurrent chronic bronchitis, you have chronic asthma, you need to treat the underlying disorder of allergies. And this is what happens. About 40% of the population has allergy symptoms. About 20% are bad enough that they should be treated. If you get recurrent chronic sinus infections, spring and fall or several times a year on antibiotics, what does that tell you about your immune system? Your immune system is shot. If you keep getting recurrent infections, you're not a healthy person. You don't have a healthy immune system. So your question should be to your doctor, Doctor, I don't want to why do I have to keep taking antibiotics? Why can't my immune system fight off these infections? What do I need to do naturally that would help me overcome the infections? And the infections are caused primarily are precipitated by the allergy reaction. Now, what happens when you breathe in, if you have an allergy diathesis, a genetic predisposition towards allergy, and nearly half of you do in the listening audience, 40%, what happens is when you breathe in the pollens or the mold spores, they get into they come in through your nose and into the lungs. They get on the mucosal membranes, and your body begins to make antibodies to those allergens, and those antibodies bind to cells that line your mucous membranes, and they're called mast cells. Well, guess what the mast cells are filled with? They're filled with histamine. So the next time you come in contact with the allergen, now the mast cells rupture and they spill their contents, the histamine, and that causes dilation of the capillaries, and they begin to ooze fluid, and next thing you know, you've got this chronic catarrh, you've got this chronic postnasal drainage, and it's in your sinuses, and it's a culture media for bacteria. And we're all surrounded by bacteria. Our body's loaded with bacteria, covered with healthy bacteria, but the bad bacteria will get in, and it is like a culture media, so you begin to get an infection. And you go to the doctor, and invariably the doctor is going to say, well, you have a sinus infection. You knew that when you came in. And he may give you a shot of dexamethasone, a cortisone preparation, which is a chemical counterfeit to natural cortisol. He may give you that and give you a shot of antibiotics or put you on some antibiotics empirically to help clear up the infection. But you still have the underlying allergic disorder. So you really haven't addressed that. The second thing that happens when you take the antibiotics, you kill not only the abnormal bacteria, the pathogenic bacteria in the sinuses or in the bronchial tubes in your lungs, but you also are killing healthy bacteria that exist within your colon, in the intestines. And you've got a natural balance between your normal healthy bacteria in the colon that help digest the food and the yeast. And when you kill off good healthy bacteria, yeast overgrows. Women will get female yeast infections. But both men and women will get yeast into the colon. And so when you have yeast in the colon, if you know anything about yeast, yeast grows on sugar. So if you're on a high carbohydrate diet, inevitably what happens is that the yeast grows, and yeast gives off gas. If any of you all have ever made homemade bread, you know you need the dough. You gotta make it rise. You gotta add yeast to it. So you get some packet of Fleischmann yeast, dump it in a glass of water, sprinkle sugar in it, it foams up. Well, that's what happened when yeast is in your colon. So you're eating a lot of sugars, simple carbohydrates, which get converted to sugar. That's the pizza, pasta, and breads. They all get converted to sugar, and you get bloating and belching and gas. The next thing you got gastroesophageal reflux and the whole 9 yards. And you go to the doctor, and he goes, well, you've got irritable bowel syndrome. Your question should be, why do I have irritable bowel syndrome? Why do I have all this bloating? Why do I have bloating, belching, and gas? Why do I have gastroesophageal reflux? Well, you just do. It just happens to people. But we've got a medication for it. They're going to give you a purple pill. Nexium, maybe. Maybe they'll give you Prilosec or something. You can buy some of these things over the counter now. Or they give you an antacid. Or they give you some kind of medication simply to mask the symptoms. And they do. They will mask the symptoms, but they haven't addressed the underlying problem of yeast in the system. And yeast produces toxins, which get carried in the blood. They damage the immune system. They damage your power plants in your cells, your mitochondria, so you don't produce enough energy. And they set you up for another infection because now your body's worn down and you're toxic. You got yeast toxin in your system. So you're toxic, and you just have one round of another of a series of infections. And this oftentimes in women will occur, I found out when I did strictly allergy, after they've had a couple of kids. I've had women come in here. I knew there was a hormonal relationship to allergies because women would come in and say, I never had any problems with sinus infections or bronchial infections. I had my second baby, and I've been sick all the time. I have to take antibiotics several times a year, and then I get female yeast infections. Well, the problem is that when your hormones decline and become imbalanced, that adversely affects your immune system. And in an individual that has allergies, that can activate the underlying gene that causes allergies, so the allergy manifests itself at a later age. Allergies can manifest themselves in young kids. That's routinely food allergies. Wheat, corn, egg, milk, yeast, soybean. And 50% of ear infections are caused by a milk allergy. You take the kids off milk after they're weaned. They're the only mammals that drink milk after they're weaned are human beings that live in Western civilizations that have a dairy council. Elephants don't drink milk after the wean. Cows don't drink milk out of their wean. They got big bone structure. How do they get calcium? Out of the greens, out of what they're eating. It has calcium in it. So you get adequate calcium with the proper healthy program of eating good vegetables. And that's what the kids ought to be eating instead of Fruit Loops and all the other cereals that you give them. And if you want to keep your kids sick, just give them a bunch of sugar cereal and throw milk on it.
Or the behavioral problems,
Yeah.
if you're struggling with your child and their behavior, a lot of time that it has due to food allergies.
Food allergy. As a matter of fact, when I did strictly allergy, I used to see a lot of kids who'd come in with a diagnosis of ADHD, and we found that many of these children had their problems due to a food allergy. And we could, by giving them minute portions of that food sublingually or injected in the skin, we could precipitate the problem. We could precipitate the behavioral problem, and then we could neutralize it with food drops. But the best way to do it is to eliminate the foods. And I talk about it in my chapter in Hormones, Health, and Happiness. I have a chapter in the book on allergies. So not only can kids have allergies, but any time in life, allergies can flare up. So we commonly see it in women after childbirth when their hormones become imbalanced. And the way we treat allergies here, we do skin testing, and we determine at what level you're allergic to the common airborne allergens, and then we use sublingual drops under the tongue to neutralize you on a daily basis. So that's the way we treat allergies, and that's a little short discourse on allergies, and I hope it's helpful. When we come back, we're going to be visiting with Matt Barber, who's visiting with us from Colorado City. And Matt has founded the Christian Civil Rights Watch. And we're going to ask him about that when we come back.
Thank you, Dr. Hotze. And if any of what Dr. Hotze said made sense to you, if you've been suffering from allergies, maybe behavioral issues with your children, you can always pick up the phone and call. We'd love to send you a complimentary copy of Dr. Hotze's best-selling book, Hormones, Health, and Happiness. All you have to do is call 281-698-8698, 281-698-8698. You're listening to Dr. Hotze's Wellness Revolution. Please stay tuned.
Dr. Hotze's Wellness Revolution, your daily dose of radio reality.
Oh, welcome back to Dr. Hotze's Wellness Revolution. This is Stacey Banfield here with Dr. Stephen Hotze. And if you are sick and tired of being sick and tired, then know there is a natural way to address your health issues. You can give us a call today at 281-698-8698. That's 281-698-8698. Here's Dr. Hotze.
Thanks so much for joining us. Remember, I told you what we believe. I believe that you need a health coach. You need a doctor and a staff of professionals who will coach you onto a path of health and wellness naturally so you enjoy a better quality of life without having to take pharmaceutical drugs. We have as our guest on the program a friend of mine who's come all the way from Colorado Springs to visit with me about Christian civil rights. And it's Matt Barber. And Matt is the founder of the Christian Civil Rights Watch. He's also the founder of Barber. You can find that online. So he's been a real strong advocate of taking a stand for Christian and biblical positions in our society for decades. He's an attorney, and he's going to visit with us about why we need a Christian Civil Rights Watch in just a minute. But while he was in here, I visited with Matt yesterday afternoon, and of course he wanted to know what we do, and I told him what we believe, and he said, "Well, that's interesting. My wife believes the same way, and she's been trying to tell me for years that I need to be practicing that." So I was pretty straightforward with Matt. I said, "Matt, you know what? We need you in the movement." I'm talking about the Christian conservative political movement. You're a leader, and you need to be in good health because we got a long way to go to turn this country back around and restore our godly heritage. And to his credit, he decided to do a 180. He decided to stay overnight and came to my home last night and stayed with us, stayed with Janie and I last night, and then came in today and has gone through a workup. So, Todd, what made you decide last night, just after meeting with him, what made you decide, I need to do this?
Well, I was so impressed, and thanks for having me on, Dr. Hotze, and thanks for your hospitality and for the hospitality of everyone here at your Health and Wellness Center. This is a top-notch operation, both in terms of the product that you put out, but the relationships, the way that you treat people here. I told my wife, I said it's like a cross between a spa and a medical clinic. It's just but wonderful, wonderful stuff. But that said, I'm 50 pounds overweight. I have high blood pressure. I'm 48 years old. I need to lose 50 pounds. I need to get my blood pressure down. I've had acid reflux, horrible, debilitating acid reflux disease for 20 years probably. And for 20 years probably. And my wife has been trying to get me to go the holistic approach. She did it herself because her hormones were imbalanced a few years ago, and just it changed her life, revolutionized her life. So I'm on all these medications. They're terrible. The side effects are horrible. They're treating the symptom. I know this, but I'm a busy guy. You're a busy guy. I'm like, well, I got to keep treating the symptoms. I don't really have time to just toss everything and go in and get the analysis and get on a program. Well, I finally you convinced me between the Bible says if listen to sound wisdom and listen to many advisors, and both of you kind of converging upon me at once. My wife has an ally. I said, okay, that's it. I surrender. It's time. I threw up my arms, and boy, am I glad I did. I'm really excited about the program you're putting me on, and I want to reverse this and get off of these horrible medications that treat the symptoms and create new symptoms, and it's a vicious cycle. So I'm ready to start.
Well, I want to congratulate you for doing a 180 and taking charge of your health. And that's what each one of you needs to do. You need to make up your mind, just like Matt did. Say, okay, I'm planting a stake in the ground. I'm turning this thing around. I've got a lot to live for and a lot to do. God put you on this world for a reason. You got a purpose in life. If you haven't figured out what it is yet because you're not feeling well, get yourself well and figure out what God wants you to do the rest of your life and go about and let's get it done. Now, the reason I was so insistent that Matt get himself on a path of health and wellness is because of the wonderful work that he has done in the Christian conservative movement for decades. So, Matt, why don't you tell us, you're an attorney, what has led you, and you go back to what happened in the insurance business when you were in that, what has led you to want to set up a Christian Civil Rights Watch, and why do we need one?
Well, back in 2004, I was working in Chicago at a major Fortune 100 company, and enjoyed my job working as an attorney, headed up a team of corporate fraud investigators. And but I just felt I would lay awake at night and say, Lord, I felt like you called me to serve you, to serve the passions that you put inside me on these issues, and not to serve a major company. But be careful what you pray for, because sometimes God will give it to you. A friend of mine had a conservative website, asked me to start writing a column. I'm a writer. I've always enjoyed writing. Started writing a weekly column. I wrote an article titled "Intolerance Will Not Be Tolerated: The Gay Agenda versus Family Values." And right there before my very eyes, in 2 weeks, my article was proven true. They fired me, again, for my intolerance, right, because I was defending natural man-woman marriage as God created it. And long story short, I ended up getting with the Christian Law Association, David Gibbs III. We filed a lawsuit. They got tired of me running my mouth. We settled out of court, and God more than made us whole. It was such a blessing. But that launched me into what I do. I worked for Concerned Women for America in D.C. About 11 months later, I was fighting the Human Rights Campaign, who sought to get me fired in the first place. I was fighting them head to head. So they created this monster. And then I ended up working with Matt Staver of Liberty Counsel, a religious liberties law firm, and was the associate dean at Liberty University School of Law, and have now branched off on my own. I've been trying to get back to Colorado for 20 years, where I'm from. We're back. We've launched Christian Civil Rights Watch. And whereas, a number of these pro-family Christian evangelical organizations, they do wonderful work, and a lot of the legal organizations, they're defending the baker, they're defending the florist, and people who are absolutely having their Christian civil rights violated. They're being persecuted for their faith, and these.
So really, the other side is really intolerant. Of us.
Exactly. Well, exactly. And these sexual orientation, gender identity laws are a license to discriminate. Well, I've decided that they're doing a lot of the defense work. It's time to have a plaintiff's attorney. It's time to have a prosecutor. So we're going to start proactively going after these organizations, these companies that are violating the civil rights, First Amendment guaranteed civil rights of Christians across the country. We are in unprecedented hostile waters in terms of anti-Christian discrimination and bigotry in the United States.
We'll be back with Matt after the break, and he'll visit with us more about Christian civil rights and the Christian Civil Rights Watch.
Thank you, Dr. Hotze. And if you want more information on doing a 180 and taking charge of your health, then give us a call today at 281-698-8698. That's 281-698-8698. You're listening to Dr. Hotze's Wellness Revolution. Please stay tuned.
Now back to the Wellness Revolution. Here's your host, Dr. Stephen Hotze.
This is Dr. Hotze's Wellness Revolution, where we are on a mission to help you achieve health and wellness naturally. If you want more information on doing a 180 and taking charge of your health, then give us a call today at 281-698-8698. That's 281-698-8698. Here's Dr. Hotze.
Thanks so much, Stacy, and thank you for joining us today on Wellness Revolution. We're having a little bit of change of format because a good friend of mine from Colorado Springs has come in, Matt Barber, to visit with me yesterday about the organization that he's formed, which is entitled Christian Civil Rights Watch. And we talked a little bit about it on the last segment, so let's follow up on that. Tell us what's going on in society today that makes you concerned about Christians and our civil rights.
Well, thanks, Dr. Hotze. And there was a recent report that was done that shows, certainly during the Obama administration, but we have seen a twofold increase in acts of anti-Christian discrimination and First Amendment violations and Title VII violations against Christians for merely exercising their freedom of religious expression. And this is not by accident. This is by design. We are in a culture war. You've often heard it said This is a spiritual battle. There are two completely incompatible and polarized worldviews that cannot possibly operate in harmony. And as Heifeld Bloom, who was President Obama's EEOC appointment, once said, this is a zero-sum game. Somebody wins, somebody loses.
Right.
In their mind, and she has said it this way, gays win, Christians lose. Progressives win, Christians lose. You know, your cultural Marxist left, they win, we lose. And in order to supplant the Judeo-Christian tradition that this nation was founded upon, they want to reinvent and recreate in America in their own secular humanist, anti-theist world image. So they are attacking our very foundations from a constitutional standpoint. The first of which, of course, is the freedom of religious expression and free speech, the press, so forth. So we are seeing these attacks. You and I were talking about yesterday. George Soros, for instance, has just funneled $18 billion into all of these groups that he's affiliated with, these anti-Christian extremist organizations, Marxist communist organizations. And one of their big projects is to silence all dissent from their
worldview,
their secularist worldview, right. And which is anathema to truth, which is anathema to the reality that there is God, that the Bible is total truth. And so in order to do that, they have to silence Christians. They have to push to the margins all Christians. They have to discriminate against and persecute and ruin reputationally, economically, financially, Christians. They have to shut us up, because don't forget now, they're creating a whole new America modeled more after a Euro-socialist structure, a secularist, anti-theist structure, than our nation's true Judeo-Christian founding. Well, we're fighting back. And one of our mottos at Christian Civil Rights Watch is, first of all, fighting for true civil rights. But the one that people really get excited about is when we say it's time to go on the offense. You know, I'm a former professional boxer, so that's how God hardwired me, and we're ready to take the fight to them. And so we have a number of initiatives that are brewing right now that are in the works, and a number of things we're going to be launching. One of which you and I talked about, the Southern Poverty Law Center. They're one of the worst offenders. They malign and defame Christian individuals and groups as hate groups, right? Because you disagree with them. Because you believe in traditional marriage, biblical marriage and the biblical sexual ethic, you're a hater. So they, in the media, which is simpatico with them, they agree, they're aligned, if they're kindred spirits, they will tout their propagandist hate group materials, and this has led to violence. This has led to attempted mass murder at the Family Research Council. This is a dangerous organization. So when we're countering that.
And the SPLC stands for the Southern Poverty Law Center.
Southern Poverty Law Center. Yes, thank you. And so we are countering that. We are providing a comprehensive list with detailed information on these anti-Christian extremist groups. And we're gonna provide a map. We're gonna provide their offenses, or the criterion of how do they get on our anti-Christian list. And so we're countering their propaganda with truth. We don't hate. You don't hate. I don't hate. We love everyone. We all sin, so we love these individuals, and for them to say that we hate them and lump Christian organizations and individuals with the KKK, with violent, Aryan nation groups and so forth, it's not only disingenuous, it's dangerous.
Right. And you brought up the point that what they really are, if you look wherever the communist Marxists have gained a toehold, and then ultimately taking control of the government. Ultimately, you either submit or you're either jailed or killed.
Don't forget, they believe, and they're acknowledging this. And you think of the Antifa movement, right? They call themselves the anti-fascists, which it's so remarkable to me that
because they are as fascist.
They are employing fascist tactics to fight what they perceive as anti-fascism, which again, just like the hate group model, is anyone who they disagree with. Right. You're automatically a white supremacist. You're an anti-fascist. So the Antifa, the Black Lives Matters, the Southern Poverty Law Center, you hear crickets. Even when they're engaging in terrorist attacks and violence, and you want to hear a peep from them because they are their foot soldiers.
Right.
They are kindred ideological spirits. So they're out there doing they're their heavies. They're out there they're foot soldiers doing the work of the more organized George Soros, $18 billion funded now left. And Antifa and all of these groups are beneficiaries of this tremendous funnel stream of money that is coming in now. So we got a big fight against us. It's David and Goliath, but God loves using a Gideon's army.
We remember how the David and Goliath turned out.
Yeah.
I want to bring to your attention that the Antifa, which is the communist organization, has formed a group called Refuse Fascism. And, of course, they use fascist tactics to go after the police and anybody that disagrees with them. And they're planning to start a revolution in the United States November 4th, Saturday, November 4th, and you ought to check into that. If you go to Google it, Google Refuse Fascism, and see what they've got planned. They've got it planned out. All the cities they're going to be in, and they're going to start. What they're going to start is to do the kind of rioting we saw in Berkeley, and we saw in Baltimore, and we saw in Ferguson, and we saw in Washington, D.C. after Trump. And they want to create anarchy in our society. These are anarchists. These are communists. And this is what they want to do, is overturn our current governmental system. And as Matt said, it's time for us to be on the offensive. We've got to be ready to take, really, the ball to them. We've got to be moving down the field. We've got to be going after them. And I'm not saying violently, but we need to go after them in every legal fashion we can, and we need to depend upon our police force and National Guard to protect those of us. The whole function of civil government is to punish evildoers. This is in Romans 13, and to protect those that do righteous. Those who live honorable lives need to be protected by governmental authorities, and that's what our government's going to need to do. So check on that on November the 4th. I'm concerned about this, very concerned about it, and I wanted to bring it to your attention. Well, Matt, I want to thank you so much for coming on the program today and sharing with us your work at Civil Rights Watch. And if anybody wants to read Matt's work, you can go to bobwire.com.
It's barbwire, BARBwire.com.
And I'd encourage you to do that. He's got some outstanding articles, and there are other great articles you can read at bobwire.com, barbwire.com.
That's right. And like Dr. Hotze said about Matt, you're out there fighting the good fight. We want you to be healthy and well. That's why he looked Matt in the eyes and said, you need to come in. You need to take charge of your health.
He said, we got to keep you alive, buddy.
That's right. And so for all of you out there, I know Dr. Hotze wants that for you as well. So all you have to do is pick up the phone, give us a call, 281-698-8698. That's 281-698-8698. It would be such a pleasure to serve you. And, of course, it's always a pleasure to have you join us every day here at Dr. Hotze's Wellness Revolution. Have a blessed and wonderful day.
Information provided on this radio program is neither intended nor implied to be a substitute for professional medical advice and is not intended to replace the services of a physician, nor does it constitute a doctor-patient relationship. You should not use information from this radio program to diagnose or treat a health problem or disease without consulting with a qualified healthcare provider. If you have or suspect you have an urgent medical problem, promptly contact a professional healthcare provider or call 911. Dr. Hotze's Wellness Revolution radio program advises you to always seek the advice of a physician or other qualified health provider prior to starting any new treatment or with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition. Any application of the recommendations from this radio program is at the listener